I thought I had married my soulmate, my business partner, my best friend. But while I was building our empire behind the scenes, Jake was building something else entirely. A web of lies and betrayals that would destroy everything we had created together. Hi, my name's Emma Rodriguez, 26 years old, and I just watched my husband's 2 million follower fitness empire crumble in real time. But this isn't just a story about a cheating spouse. It's about how I discovered that the man I loved, the brand I built, and the life I thought we shared were all carefully constructed lies. Have you ever discovered that your entire life was built on deception? And today, where are you listening to my story from? Share your experience in the comments so I know I'm not alone. Jake and I met in high school when we were both 17. He was the star athlete, captain of the wrestling team with shoulders that seemed to fill every doorway he walked through. I was the quiet girl who tutored struggling students in business studies, spending lunch breaks in the library instead of gossiping by the lockers. What started as study sessions turned into late-night conversations about our dreams, sitting on the bleachers after his practice, talking until the custodians turned off the stadium lights. He wanted to inspire people to get fit, to transform their lives the way wrestling had transformed his. I wanted to build something meaningful from the ground up, to create systems and strategies that could change industries. While our classmates talked about college applications and fraternity parties, we were sketching business plans on napkins and dreaming about a future where we could combine his natural charisma with my analytical mind. After graduation, while our friends headed off to universities across the country, we took a different path. With my business degree from community college and his natural ability to motivate people, we decided to build a fitness brand together. I handled everything behind the scenes, the marketing strategies that would capture attention in a crowded market, brand partnerships that required months of negotiation, content scheduling that kept our audience engaged every single day, financial planning that turned passion into profit, legal contracts that protected our growing empire. Jake became the face, the inspiration, the voice that motivated thousands to wake up at 5 a.m. for workouts, to meal prep on Sundays, to believe they could transform their bodies and their lives. He had this incredible ability to look directly into a camera and make each viewer feel like he was speaking personally to them, like he understood their struggles because he had been there too. For 3 years, we were unstoppable. His follower count grew from 10,000 dedicated fans who commented on every post, to 100,000 people who bought everything he recommended, then to 500,000 who treated his daily motivation like gospel, and finally to 2 million devoted followers who hung on his every word. Our monthly revenue hit 6 figures. Supplement companies fought to sponsor him, offering contracts that would have seemed impossible just years before. Fitness gear brands sent us products for free, begging for just a single post featuring their equipment. We bought a house in Venice Beach, a beautiful 3-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows that filled our home with California sunlight. We transformed the garage into a professional home gym, complete with professional lighting rigs, multiple camera angles, and every piece of equipment Jake could possibly need for his content. The dining room became my office headquarters, where I managed our growing business empire from behind multiple monitors. I was proud of what we had built together. Every morning, I would wake up at 5 a.m. to prep his content calendar, respond to business emails that had arrived overnight from potential partners around the world, and coordinate with sponsors who wanted to align their brands with Jake's authentic message of transformation. By the time Jake woke up at 7 a.m., I had already put in 2 hours of work, ensuring his day could be focused entirely on training and filming the content that kept our audience engaged. I thought we were the perfect team, his natural talent for inspiration, my strategic mind for business, our shared vision of helping people become the best versions of themselves. I genuinely believed we were building something beautiful together, something that would last forever. The warning signs started small, so small I convinced myself I was being paranoid, the kind of wife who sees problems where none exist. Jake began taking more business trips than usual. Meetings with supplement companies in Miami, fitness expos in Las Vegas that seemed to require longer stays than necessary, brand collaborations in New York that involved dinners I was never invited to join. He would be gone for days, sometimes a full week, always returning with stories about networking opportunities and new partnerships that would take our business to the next level. His phone habits changed too. Where he once left it casually on kitchen counters while he showered, Now it was always face down, always within arm's reach, even during our rare dinner conversations. The phone went with him to the bathroom, to the garage during workouts, even to the mailbox when he checked our mail. When I asked to use it to check our business Instagram while he was in the shower, he would emerge dripping wet to hand it to me personally, claiming he was protective of our brand accounts and didn't want any accidental posts or messages. The DMs started feeling different too. I had always managed most of his social media interactions, responding to fan questions, screening potential business partnerships, and maintaining the authentic voice our audience loved. But increasingly, Jake would say, "I'll handle the DMs today," or "I'm responding to some potential partnerships myself." When I asked about specific collaborations he mentioned meeting about, the details were always frustratingly vague. "It's still in early stages," he would say, or "they want to keep things confidential for now." Then came the unexplained expenses that made my business-trained mind start asking uncomfortable questions. Our business credit card showed charges at high-end restaurants I'd never been to, places with names like the Sunset Room and Ocean Prime where dinner for two would cost more than we used to spend on groceries in a week. There were expensive hotels during trips where he claimed he was staying with business contacts, luxury suites at the Ritz-Carlton when he said he was crashing on someone's couch. Charges at jewelry stores, high-end boutiques, spas that specialized in couples treatments. When I brought up the inconsistencies during our Sunday business meetings, Jake always had explanations that sounded reasonable but felt hollow in my chest. "The expensive dinners were client entertainment," he would say. "The hotel upgrades were last-minute changes when the original accommodations fell through. The jewelry store charges were gifts for our anniversary that he was keeping as surprises, though our anniversary had passed months ago without any special gifts appearing." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. This was the man I had built my entire adult life around, the person I trusted more than anyone in the world. So I pushed down the uncomfortable feeling in my stomach and focused on the parts of our business I could control, telling myself that successful partnerships required trust, and Jake had never given me a reason to doubt him before. The truth came crashing down on a Tuesday morning in March. Jake was supposed to be in Miami for a 3-day fitness expo, partnering with a new supplement brand called Peak Performance Nutrition that he claimed was revolutionizing the industry. I was home handling our taxes, surrounded by receipts and financial documents, when I realized I needed his business receipts from the Miami trip to properly categorize our deductions. I called the Fontainebleau, the hotel where Jake said he was staying. "I'm sorry, but we don't have anyone registered under that name," the receptionist told me in a polite but definitive tone. My heart started racing as I tried variations. Maybe he had registered under our business name, maybe there had been a booking error. Nothing. No record of Jake Rodriguez anywhere in their system for the past week. My hands were trembling as I called Peak Performance Nutrition directly. After being transferred through 3 different departments, I finally reached someone who could help me. "Jake Rodriguez," the marketing director repeated. "I'm sorry, but we've never heard of him. We don't have any partnerships with fitness influencers right now. We're actually a B2B company. We don't work with social media at all." The room seemed to spin around me. I sat down heavily in my office chair, staring at the business receipts scattered across my desk, each one now feeling like evidence of something I wasn't ready to confront. My hands were shaking as I opened our business credit card statements on my laptop, the same accounts I had always managed with meticulous care. The charges from Jake's Miami business trip told a completely different story. Expensive dinners for two at South Beach's most romantic restaurants, places like Prime Italian and Juvia that were clearly designed for intimate dates, not business meetings. A luxury hotel room at the Edition, upgraded to a suite with ocean views. Charges at Victoria's Secret that made my stomach turn, a high-end jewelry store called Mares where he had spent $3,200 on something I had never seen. 2 separate charges at a spa that specialized in couples massages and romantic treatments. Each line item felt like a physical blow. This wasn't business entertainment. This wasn't client relationship building. This was Jake living a completely different life, a life that had nothing to do with our marriage or our business, while I sat at home managing the empire we had supposedly built together. That's when I made the decision that changed everything. I logged into his Instagram account using the password I had always known, our wedding anniversary, the same password he used for everything because he said important dates should never be forgotten. What I found in his DMs made me physically sick, the kind of nausea that comes from your entire world shifting beneath your feet. Hundreds of messages. Dozens of women. Screenshots that showed intimate conversations spanning months, photos that were clearly not meant for public consumption, video calls scheduled for times when he was supposed to be in business meetings, planned meetups in cities that perfectly aligned with his business trips. I scrolled for hours, my stomach churning with each new revelation. Messages that said, "Can't wait to see you in Miami again, baby, and tell your wife this is just business if she asks, and you're even better in person than on camera, daddy." There were women who called him pet names, women who sent him photos of lingerie they had bought for their planned encounters, women who discussed hotel room numbers and specific dates with the casual familiarity of established relationships. These weren't random fans sliding into his DMs hoping for attention. These were ongoing relationships, some spanning months, some overlapping with others in ways that made me realize Jake was maintaining a complex web of simultaneous affairs. Women he had met at previous business trips, followers he had personally reached out to and invited to meet him in various cities, even competitors in the fitness space who had connected with him at industry events. But as I continued reading, I discovered that the infidelity was just the beginning. Jake wasn't just betraying our marriage. He was betraying every single person who followed him, every customer who had bought his programs, every fan who looked to him for authentic inspiration. The steroids were the first shock that hit me like ice water. In his DMs with a contact named Tony, Miami Connect, there were detailed discussions about cycles, injection schedules, and how to hide the telltale side effects during filming. Screenshots of payment confirmations for testosterone, growth hormone, and substances I had to Google to understand. Conversations about timing cycles around photoshoots and how to maintain his physique during off periods. For 2 years, Jake had been using performance-enhancing drugs while promoting natural transformation to his audience. He was selling supplements and workout programs to people desperate to achieve his results that were impossible to achieve naturally. Every Transformation Tuesday post, every motivational speech about hard work and dedication, every product endorsement was built on a foundation of chemical enhancement he was hiding from the people who trusted him most. The Photoshop discovery came next, buried in his conversations with someone called Digital Marcus, Photo Pro. I found before and after photos showing the extensive digital manipulation done to every single one of Jake's physique posts. Abs were enhanced and sharpened, muscles were enlarged and more defined, skin was perfected to an impossible standard. Conversations about making the delts pop more and can you add more definition to the V-taper, and make sure the vascularity looks natural but impressive. The Transformation Tuesday posts that inspired thousands of people to buy his programs, the progress photos that motivated his followers to push through difficult workouts, the physique updates that made people believe dramatic change was possible, all of them were completely fabricated through digital manipulation. But the worst betrayal was in his private messages with other influencers and industry contacts, where he mocked the very people who supported our lifestyle. Screenshots of fan messages with his cruel commentary. Look at this pathetic loser asking for motivation again, and these people will buy anything if you just tell them it'll make them look like me, and my followers are so fucking gullible, it's almost too easy to take their money. There were conversations where he laughed about desperate housewives who bought his programs hoping to transform their post-pregnancy bodies. Messages where he made fun of beta males who looked up to him for inspiration. Screenshots of customer service emails from people struggling with his programs, with Jake's commentary about how they're too lazy to follow simple instructions and they want results without putting in the work, typical. Every product he endorsed, he privately called garbage or overpriced shit that barely works. Every motivational post about believing in yourself was followed by messages laughing about how much money these suckers just made me. Every success story shared by his followers was met with comments about placebo effect and they would have gotten results anyway if they weren't so fucking weak-minded. I sat in our home office until 3 a.m., reading through years of deception, watching the man I thought I knew transform into someone unrecognizable. This wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't just a husband having affairs. This was systematic fraud against hundreds of thousands of people who trusted him, who spent their hard-earned money on products he didn't believe in, who followed his advice while he was secretly using completely different methods to achieve his results. The Jake I thought I had married, the inspiring, authentic, caring person who wanted to help people transform their lives, had never existed. He was a character, a carefully constructed persona designed to extract money and admiration from people, while Jake lived a completely separate life built on lies, chemicals, digital manipulation, and contempt for the very people who made his lifestyle possible. When Jake returned from his fake Miami trip, I was waiting for him in our living room with printed screenshots spread across the coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. He walked in with his usual confident smile and a small gift bag from a high-end boutique, probably something he had bought for one of his side relationships and was now trying to pass off as a surprise for his devoted wife. "Hey babe, missed you so much," he said, dropping his gym bag by the door and moving to kiss me. I turned my head so his lips landed on my cheek instead of my mouth. "How was the business meeting?" I asked, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest like acid. He launched into his rehearsed story about the supplement partnership with Peak Performance Nutrition, the productive meetings that had gone even better than expected, the exciting opportunities that were going to take our brand to the next level. As he talked, gesturing enthusiastically about deals that didn't exist, I slowly started placing the printed screenshots on the coffee table where he could see them. His voice gradually trailed off as he noticed the papers. Photos from his hotel suite with a blonde woman whose face was turned toward him adoringly. Messages planning intimate meetups with specific room numbers and times. Screenshots of his conversations with Tony about steroid cycles and injection schedules. Before and after Photoshop comparisons showing the digital manipulation of his posts. "Emma, I can explain," he started, but I held up my hand to stop him. "Can you explain this?" I asked, showing him a message where he had written to one of his affairs. "My wife does all the business stuff while I live my real life. She's so focused on spreadsheets and numbers she never pays attention to what I'm actually doing. She's making me rich while I do whatever the fuck I want. It's actually perfect." His face went completely white. For the first time in our entire relationship, Jake was completely speechless. The man who could motivate thousands of people with his words couldn't find a single thing to say. I told him I knew about the dozens of women, the systematic affairs he had been conducting for over a year. I told him I knew about the steroids, the way he had been lying to his audience about being natural while secretly using performance-enhancing drugs. I showed him the evidence of the Photoshop manipulation, the digital lies that made his physique impossible for his followers to achieve naturally. I read him his own words mocking the people who trusted him, the customers who bought his programs, the fans who looked up to him for inspiration. Instead of remorse, instead of apologies, instead of any acknowledgement of the pain he had caused, Jake's response was immediate anger. "You went through my private messages. You violated my privacy. Emma, you're being fucking crazy. This is just business. This is how this industry works. Everyone does this shit." When I mentioned divorce, he actually laughed, a cold, dismissive sound that felt like a slap. "And give up half of what we built. Emma, you need me. Without my face, without my followers, you're nothing in this industry. You think you can run this business without me? You're just the behind-the-scenes girl. Nobody knows who you are. I'm the brand. I'm what people pay for." That laugh, that dismissive tone, that assumption that I was powerless without him, it crystallized everything I needed to do next. Jake had systematically deceived me, his audience, and hundreds of thousands of people who trusted him. He had stolen money through fraudulent product endorsements and fake transformation claims. He had mocked and exploited the very people whose support made our lifestyle possible. If he wanted to play the game of deception and manipulation, I would show him how it's really done by someone who actually understood business strategy. I didn't act in anger. I acted with the same strategic precision I had used to build Jake's empire, the same analytical approach I had brought to every business decision we had ever made. If he wanted to treat this like a war, he was about to discover he had been fighting someone who understood the battlefield better than he ever could. First, I secured everything I could legally claim. I had built the business infrastructure from the ground up, managed every financial transaction, and legally owned half of everything we had created together. I quietly transferred our legitimate business assets into accounts Jake couldn't access, documented every fraudulent expense from his affairs, and gathered comprehensive evidence of his financial misrepresentation to sponsors and customers. I met with a divorce attorney who specialized in high-asset cases involving business partnerships. I met with a business attorney who understood influencer marketing and digital fraud. I documented everything: the steroid use, the digital manipulation, the customer deception, the financial fraud, the systematic affairs conducted using business funds. Then I began the systematic exposure. I created several anonymous accounts across different platforms, each with different purposes and different audiences. Some posed as concerned former fans who had insider information about fitness industry fraud. Others claimed to be industry whistleblowers who were tired of seeing people deceived. One posed as a disgruntled employee of a supplement company who had inside knowledge about influencer partnerships. I started small, planting seeds of doubt in places where fitness industry insiders would notice. Anonymous comments on Jake's posts asking why his physique looked so different in paparazzi photos versus his carefully controlled Instagram posts. Messages to fitness forums questioning whether his transformation timelines were realistic for athletes claiming to be natural. Tips sent to fitness industry publications about influencers who might be misleading their audiences about their methods. I spent weeks building credibility for these anonymous accounts, sharing legitimate fitness advice, engaging in authentic conversations, establishing myself as trustworthy sources within different fitness communities. I needed people to trust these accounts when the real revelations started coming out. The steroid revelation came first. I leaked photos from Jake's DMs showing injection sites on his body, messages discussing specific cycles and dosages, and before and after photos comparing his real physique to his digitally enhanced social media posts. I sent comprehensive evidence packages to fitness integrity accounts that specialized in exposing fake natural athletes, complete with timestamps and metadata proving authenticity. The response was immediate and explosive. Within 48 hours, major fitness investigation accounts had picked up the story. The evidence was too comprehensive to ignore: Jake's own words discussing cycles, photos proving steroid use, expert analysis of his impossible natural transformation timeline. The Photoshop exposure followed a week later. I had spent months learning photo forensics, understanding how to identify digital manipulation and prove alterations had been made. I created detailed side-by-side comparisons showing the digital manipulation, leaked conversations with his photo editor discussing specific enhancements, and even found unedited versions of his posts that had been accidentally uploaded to his story and quickly deleted. I sent packages to digital forensics experts who confirmed the manipulation. I provided evidence to social media literacy accounts that specialized in exposing fake imagery. I created detailed timelines showing how Jake's physique in professional photos never matched his appearance in candid shots or videos. But the most damaging revelation was Jake's own words. I leaked carefully selected audio recordings of video calls where he mocked his followers, calling them pathetic, desperate, and fucking stupid. I shared screenshots of messages where he admitted his programs were overpriced garbage for people too lazy to figure shit out themselves. I provided evidence that he was accepting money for product endorsements while privately calling the products scams and shit that barely works. The recordings were devastating because they were in Jake's own voice, impossible to deny or dismiss as fake. His casual cruelty toward the people who supported him, his contempt for customers who trusted his programs, his admission that he was knowingly selling ineffective products, it painted a picture of systematic fraud and exploitation that went far beyond simple infidelity. The empire crumbled faster than I ever imagined possible. Within a week of the first leaks, major fitness investigation accounts had picked up the story and were running detailed exposés. Within 2 weeks, fitness publications were writing articles about influencer fraud using Jake as a primary example. Within a month, Jake Rodriguez had become the poster child for everything wrong with fitness social media. His follower count began dropping dramatically. From 2 million to 1.8 million in the first week as people realized they had been systematically deceived. Then to 1.2 million as the steroid revelations spread across fitness communities. down to 800,000 when the Photoshop evidence made it impossible to deny his photos were fake. Finally settling around 400,000 as the audio recordings of him mocking his followers made it clear what he really thought of the people who supported him. The comments on his posts shifted from admiration and motivation requests to anger and betrayal. "You lied to us for years. I wasted my money on your fake programs. You're a fraud and a scammer who stole from people trying to better themselves. How could you mock the people who trusted you?" Jake tried desperately to control the narrative, posting long videos explaining his side of the story, but every response only made things worse. When he claimed the steroid use was just a brief experiment that he had stopped, more evidence surfaced showing years of consistent use. When he said the Photoshop was minor touch-ups that everyone does, photo experts demonstrated the extensive manipulation that completely altered his appearance. When he dismissed the mocking messages as taken out of context or just venting frustration, more recordings surfaced showing the systematic nature of his contempt. Sponsors began dropping him immediately. The supplement companies terminated their contracts and demanded refunds for previous partnerships. The fitness gear brands stopped sending products and removed his affiliate codes. The athletic wear companies pulled his promotional campaigns and distanced themselves from his brand. Legal troubles followed quickly. Several class action lawsuits were filed by customers who felt defrauded by his programs and product endorsements. The FTC began investigating his failure to disclose the digital manipulation of his physique photos and his use of performance-enhancing drugs while promoting natural methods and selling supplements. The final blow came when several of the women Jake had been cheating with decided to go public with their own stories. They shared screenshots of their conversations, evidence of his manipulation and lies, and detailed accounts of how he had used them while maintaining his image as a devoted husband. The fitness influencer who had built his brand on integrity and authenticity was revealed to be a serial cheater who had systematically deceived everyone in his life. One woman, a fitness model named Ashley, shared a particularly damaging recording where Jake discussed his strategy for maintaining multiple affairs. "The key is compartmentalization," his voice said clearly. "Emma handles the business, so she's always buried in spreadsheets and numbers. She doesn't pay attention to the personal stuff. These other girls get the fun Jake, the real Jake. Emma gets the responsible husband character I play at home." While Jake's world collapsed around him, I was quietly building something new and authentic. I had learned the fitness business inside and out during our years together. I understood the industry dynamics, had relationships with legitimate suppliers who valued integrity, and knew what real transformation looked like because I had studied the science behind sustainable fitness progress. I launched my own platform focused on honest fitness advice, realistic expectations, and sustainable lifestyle changes that actually worked long-term. Instead of promising dramatic transformations in 30 days, I talked about the reality of slow progress, inevitable plateaus, and temporary setbacks that were part of every genuine fitness journey. Instead of selling overpriced supplements with exaggerated claims, I partnered with companies that provided transparent ingredient lists and realistic expectations about what their products could and couldn't do. My first post was a 20-minute video explaining my role in building Jake's empire and why I was starting fresh with complete transparency. "I helped build a lie," I said, looking directly into the camera with no filters, no special lighting, just honest conversation. "I managed the business while my husband created a fake persona that deceived millions of people. I was deceived too, but that doesn't excuse my part in creating systems that allowed fraud to flourish. Now I want to help you build real results based on scientific truth, not marketing lies." The response was overwhelming in the best possible way. Jake's former followers, feeling betrayed and actively looking for authenticity, began following me in massive numbers. But more than that, people from across the fitness community appreciated the radical honesty. I showed my real workouts, including the days when I didn't feel motivated and had to push through anyway. I posted unedited photos of my actual physique, including the cellulite, loose skin, and asymmetries that Jake had always insisted I hide or digitally correct. I created programs based on realistic timelines and achievable goals that respected people's actual lives. Instead of promising to look like a fitness model in 60 days, I focused on building sustainable habits that would improve health, energy, and confidence over months and years. I provided detailed scientific explanations for why my methods worked, cited actual research studies, and admitted when something was based on anecdotal experience rather than proven science. The business grew organically because it was built on trust rather than manipulation. Within 3 months, I had 200,000 genuine followers who were actively engaged in their fitness journeys. Within 6 months, that number had grown to 500,000 people who appreciated authentic content and realistic advice. Within a year, I was earning more from my honest approach than Jake and I had ever made from his deceptive methods. The transformation wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. For years, I had been defining my worth through Jake's success, measuring my value by how well I could support his career and manage his business. Now I was discovering my own voice, my own expertise, my own ability to inspire and help people in ways that felt genuinely meaningful. I started receiving messages from people who said my content had helped them develop healthier relationships with fitness and their bodies. Parents thanked me for teaching their teenagers about realistic expectations and sustainable habits. People in their 40s and 50s said my approach had helped them find fitness routines they could actually maintain long-term instead of burning out on unsustainable crash programs. 2 years later, Jake's career never recovered from the systematic exposure of his deception. His follower count stabilized around 50,000 people, mostly hate followers who enjoyed watching his continued attempts at comebacks and the inevitable failures that followed. He tried launching several rehabilitation campaigns, posting videos where he claimed to have learned from his mistakes and found authentic purpose. But the internet never forgets, and his reputation was permanently damaged by the overwhelming evidence of his fraud and cruelty. He moved out of our Venice beach house and back in with his parents in their small apartment in Riverside. The lifestyle he had built through deception couldn't be maintained without the income stream he had destroyed through his own choices. He took a job training clients at a local gym, making $40,000 a year instead of the multiple six-figure income he had earned as an influencer. The last I heard through mutual acquaintances, Jake was trying to rebuild his life completely away from social media. He had deleted his Instagram account, stopped trying to resurrect his online career, and was focusing on in-person training with clients who didn't know about his past. In some ways, it was probably the most honest work he had done in years. Our divorce was finalized 8 months after the confrontation. Despite his initial threats about taking half of everything we had built together, the comprehensive evidence of his fraud and the legitimate business assets I had secured meant I kept the majority of what we had created. The legal proceedings revealed the full extent of his financial deception. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on affairs, fraudulent business expenses, and lifestyle inflation that had been hidden from our official business records. More importantly, I learned that my worth had never been tied to his success or his recognition. I had been the strategic mind behind the empire, the systems creator who built the infrastructure that allowed everything to function, the relationship builder who maintained partnerships and managed growth. His face might have been the brand, but my intelligence, work ethic, and business acumen were the foundation that made everything possible. Looking back now, I don't regret the systematic way I exposed Jake's deception. He had committed fraud against hundreds of thousands of people, taken their money under false pretenses while selling them impossible dreams, and mocked their trust while living off their support. The fitness industry is built on the premise that influencers are sharing authentic experiences and honest advice. Jake had violated the core principle that makes the entire system work. The people who followed him deserved to know that his results were chemically and digitally enhanced, that his programs were designed by someone who privately called them garbage, and that their trust and money were being used to fund a lifestyle built on contempt for their struggles. Exposing that deception wasn't revenge, it was justice for the thousands of people who had been systematically exploited. I also don't regret prioritizing truth over preserving our relationship. A marriage built on lies, where one partner systematically deceives not just their spouse but hundreds of thousands of people while showing contempt for their trust, isn't a marriage worth preserving. Love doesn't mean enabling fraud. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be complicit in someone's harmful behavior, even when that person is someone you once planned to spend your entire life with. The experience taught me that authenticity isn't just a marketing buzzword, It's a fundamental requirement for sustainable success and genuine happiness. Jake's approach generated more money in the short term, but it was built on a foundation that was destined to collapse. The stress of maintaining lies, the contempt for his own audience, the compartmentalization required to live multiple contradictory lives, it was a recipe for personal destruction even before I exposed the deception. Today, my business continues to grow because it's built on authenticity rather than manipulation. I have genuine relationships with my followers based on mutual respect and shared goals rather than exploitation of insecurities. I sleep well at night knowing that every product I recommend has been personally tested and genuinely helped me. Every piece of advice I give is based on scientific evidence or clearly labeled personal experience, and every transformation I showcase is achievable through the methods I actually teach. The fitness industry still has problems with unrealistic expectations, deceptive marketing, and influencers who prioritize profit over people's well-being. But there's also a growing movement toward authenticity, science-based advice, and realistic approaches that respect people's actual lives and limitations. I'm proud to be part of that movement, to use my platform to counter the toxic messages that Jake and others like him spread. I want to say this to anyone listening who has discovered that someone they trusted was living a double life. The betrayal you feel is completely valid, but it doesn't define your worth or your future possibilities. The person who deceived you made choices that reflect their character and their values, not your inadequacy or your failure as a partner. Sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't focused on hurting the person who hurt you. It's about building something better, something authentic, something that honors your true values and capabilities rather than the lies someone else constructed around you. It's about refusing to let their deception diminish your own potential for creating something meaningful and honest. If you've ever discovered that your entire life was built on someone else's deception, if you've ever felt like you were living in someone's shadow while they took credit for your contributions, please know that your intelligence, your skills, and your integrity are enough to build something beautiful and successful on your own terms. The path forward isn't always easy, and there will be moments when you question whether you made the right choice in walking away from familiar lies toward uncertain truth. But I can tell you from experience that authentic success built on your actual abilities and honest relationships, feels completely different from success built on deception. It's sustainable, it's fulfilling, and it's truly yours in a way that shared lies never can be. And before I end, I want to ask you the question I posed at the beginning. Have you ever discovered that your entire life was built on deception? Have you ever realized that someone you trusted completely was living a double life that made a mockery of your shared dreams? And today, where are you listening to my story from? Share your experience in the comments below, because knowing we're not alone in these struggles makes all the difference in finding the courage to choose authenticity over comfortable lies. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, authenticity always wins in the end, even when it requires the courage to tear down everything you thought you knew about your life.